Is this thing working? There it is. On your tables, there's a sheet that has some links on it. Those links are in my presentation, so when I get to the link, you don't have to write it down. I'm Bob Dewey. I'm from New Tazewell, Tennessee. That's about 42 miles from downtown Knoxville. And first thing I'd like for you to do is, if you have a cell phone, please put it on vibrate or turn it off so you don't disturb your neighbors with a phone call. Are you ready? Yes. Can everybody hear me? Yeah. Good. This is kind of the direction I'm going to go. Talk about soil fertility, tillage, cover crops, weed control, bed preparation, varieties, and harvesting and marketing. All of those subjects have to do with the quality of the sweet potatoes you're going to end up with. Just a little bit about my farm. I'm not certified organic, I'm certified naturally grown. I use an item or two that they don't approve of, but I do not use herbicides or pesticides. My hillsides and terrace, this is one of the valleys that terrace is in it. I had 7 inches of rain the previous 2 or 3 days. Before that, there's no washing in the terraces, and all the water, most of the water stayed right there. I store rainwater in tanks. I use that for personal use and irrigation. I have the capacity to store about 30,000 gallons of water right now. And I hope to have it full this spring, because I don't want to do another summer like last year. I harvest hay mulch to use in my operation, and I also sell hay mulch in the market to the gardeners in town. There is a way that you can generate, or you can prepare a seed bed that is going to be almost weed-free. Not 100%. And I'll talk about that in a little bit. I look at the soil fertility, and I look at removing stress from plants so that they are not bothered by disease and insects. We're going to talk about fertility next. I do use some quick hoops, row covers, and I do an email marketing. A newsletter that's sent out to all of my customers who want to see what I have. And if any of you would like to have that, I didn't bring a sign-up sheet, but all you need to do is email me or go to my website, and on the website there's a little widget up there in the left-hand corner that you can sign up for the email. If you don't like the email, just discontinue it. Soil fertility. Why do you want to test? That's my little tractor. It's got a dipstick on it. When I pull the dipstick out, it shows me how much oil I have in the engine. And if you wipe the oil off, you can see where that oil should be. You have a window for how much oil should be there. You don't go add oil to your engine before you check to see how much oil you have. I want to make you think about what you're doing. If I can make you think about anything that you're doing in your operation today, we've had a successful session. You want to make cornbread? You have a recipe. If you want to make biscuits or a loaf of bread, a cake, cookies, all of them have recipes, and they all follow the basic ratios that are in this recipe. You have so much dry matter and you have so much liquid. And that's true with anything you're going to bake. Why don't we have a recipe to the soil? Your quality starts with the soil. It depends on your nutrient levels and the balance of those nutrients. You can have perfectly balanced nutrient levels and nutrients in your soil, and if you don't do the right thing tillage-wise, you have just screwed up everything you've done. Thanks, Bob. I will ever be grateful to you for the connection to Neil Kinsey from your talk at the Nashville conference. We haven't used a spray in years on our crops, and there is so much out there than before balancing the soil. It's the right path, and it's so wonderful to be able to see folks, or sell folks, nutrient-dense foods without chemicals. Nancy, Ward Trace, Virginia, or Tennessee. She's not here, but she gave me permission to do that. The Albright system is a recipe for balanced fertility. It works in conventional or organic systems. It works with all soil types. Used with all types of cropping systems. It's simple to follow, and it eliminates your guesswork. Now, this doesn't have anything to do with soil fertility, and yet it does. This has something to do with everything you're doing on the farm. And I learned this years and years ago. When you have any situation that you want to improve, you can get an 80% return for a 20% investment in the beginning. And that applies to almost anything. I worked in industry as a technician, maintenance person, and we would go to a machine and say, we want to make it run better. We want to get more production out of it. And I had some machines that I was able to tweak and increase the production by 100% and not spend any money doing it. And that's what I've been doing with my farm operation. I'm a one-man operation. I don't hire anybody. And I look at everything I do. And I ask myself questions like, do I need to do this? If I need to do it, can I do it faster and easier? I just discovered something this morning. I have a tripod back there from the camera. And I've been flipping the release on each one of those things and pulling it out by itself. And all of a sudden it dawned on me, why don't I flip both of them and get a hold of the end and pull it all out? And I can extend that, set that tripod up at half the time now because I've changed one step in my management. So with soil fertility, there are some things that are really important, and you can address those things and get a big return for your money. The cation exchange, and with the Albright system we call it total cation exchange. That is the measurement of your soil that basically tells you how big your bucket is. For the calcium, magnesium, potassium, and sodium nutrients. Your calcium and magnesium should occupy 80% of that bucket. The calcium, the one on the left is a small bucket. That's not too different from a lot of the soils I have in my area. The one on the right, I haven't seen anything in Tennessee yet that's that big. Some of the areas around in some bottomland, up in Iowa and places where they had the prairie, you're looking at numbers as high as upper 20s, maybe low 30s. If you have a bucket that's a TEC, exchange capacity of 8, it's going to hold, under ideal conditions, it's going to hold 230 pounds of magnesium and 2,200 pounds of calcium. If you double that bucket, you have doubled the capacity and you've doubled what you need to put in there. And that's all you need to know about exchange capacity. Well, they're taking me a minute. I said at a conference a few years ago, the guy spent 45 minutes telling us about the exchange capacity and then told us it didn't make a difference because it changes. And I want to show you why it changes. This is the calcium-magnesium ratio, and if you had a light soil, a light sandy soil, or any kind of a low exchange capacity, you want your magnesium to be towards the 20%, the calcium down in the 60% area. If you have a heavy soil, you turn it around. Because what happens is the magnesium makes your soil tight, and the calcium loosens it up. If you have a pH above 7, do you need the lime? You don't need the lime? Let's look at something. There's a normal pH on the left. The one on the right was the sample taken in our area. Had a pH of 7.5. The magnesium is 30%, and the calcium is 60%. So the calcium is on the low end of where it should be. The magnesium is all the way through the ceiling. And if you look at the acidity, there is no acidity on the right. And if you're trying to farm organically, you can't do it with a pH of 7.5. This is Dean Yoder. You know, his pH was 7.5 in 2008. His TEC, or his exchange capacity, was 10.51. He applied the type of lime that will correct that situation. In this case, we use gypsum, because gypsum has calcium and sulfur in it in the sulfate form. The sulfur combines with the magnesium and makes Epsom salt, and you get rain and it washes it out. He wanted to see what happened, and the next year he did another test. His pH was 6.7. We know where it's going to go. He needs to bring his calcium up a little more. But I said that the exchange capacity can change. Look what happened. His exchange capacity was 10.51. It went to 13.06. He added calcium. Where's the pound? He added about 500 pounds of calcium to the acre, but the percent of calcium went down. And it went down because his exchange capacity went up. You don't really know how much that's going to happen when you start. So you start with small steps. You make an adjustment, you take a look at it later, and you go back and adjust it again. Sulfur is used to make protein, helps your seedlings survive in cool weather, improves the taste and quality of your produce, and most soils are lacking in sulfur. 40 to 50 pounds to the acre is a good level. You know, when I was a kid, I grew up near a power plant, and you had all this smoke and dust coming out of that power plant. Of course, they don't do it anymore because they scrub all that out. But they were emitting sulfur in that dust. And that helped maintain the sulfur levels. We got rid of that, and now we have to add sulfur because it's not coming out of the air like that. Phosphorus, 300 pounds the acre is good. When I tested my soil on the farm that I have, my phosphorus level was about 70 pounds. My soil was so poor I could not grow a cover crop of rye. And that'll grow about anywhere. Yes, sir?
Are you talking about elemental phosphorus or phosphate P2O5 on that 300 pounds per acre?
You know, that's a question I don't know if I can answer. It's what the soil test tells me. It's what the Albright test tells me.
I think that phosphate is an important distinction because phosphate is about 2.25 times the elemental phosphorus.
That's probably right. Yeah. So, the sources of phosphorus can be animal manures and compost, salt rock phosphate, hard rock phosphate. phosphate or something else. My soil had about the right level of calcium and magnesium. And if I had used soft rock phosphate, it would have upset that balance. Because soft rock phosphate has a lot of calcium in it along with the phosphorus. So I couldn't use it. I didn't have any manure and compost that I trusted, so I wasn't going to use that. Now, if you are on a new piece of land and you want to be certified organic or certified naturally grown, you're in a transition period, why don't you look at adjusting your phosphorus level if it needs to be adjusted at the beginning with something that will get you where you want to go. There's a couple of chemical phosphorus sources out there that work. If you go down and buy 1919 or 12 and put it on your crop, you have a little bit of phosphorus available for the growing crop when you put it on. 90 days is generally tied up, and it won't show up on the soil test. There's a product called DAP, and to show you how effective it is, it's a little bit of nitrogen and a whole lot of phosphorus in a chemical form. I used it to grow my rye cover crop and my Sudan cover crops. 2 years later, I was at 750 pounds of phosphorus to the acre. And that may be one reason why my customers tell me that my produce tastes different than anybody else's. Now, I don't know if that's better or not, but they keep buying from me. I have over 1,200 pounds of phosphorus or complex other nutrients. And this is something you should be aware of. I've had 3 people that I've worked with over the past year that have phosphorus levels up near 1,200 pounds. And what that does is that starts tying up copper and zinc. And they got there. In all those cases, they got there because they used a lot of compost and a lot of manure. You cannot continue to use compost and manure year after year without checking your phosphorus level. All 3 of those operations have ceased to use compost. And you have to make a closed system out of it because you cannot get rid of that phosphorus. The only way you can get rid of it is to haul crop off of it. If you grow clover and alfalfa, you fix up that phosphorus and you sell the hay off the land, you're going to get rid of some of it. But you're on vegetables, it's going to stay there a long time. We've already talked about that. Potassium, needed for strong stalks, utilizing the control of water in the plant. Helps plants to survive the drought. Too much of it will make your plants, your produce bitter. And if you're using a chemical source, please use potassium sulfate, not potassium chloride. And manures and compost are a good source of it. Boron. I had a lot of other things on the slide about what some of these nutrients are used for, but I wanted to make the slide so you could see it. I wanted to make the print big enough, and all that stuff wouldn't fit on here. So the boron, among other things, that it helps control the terminal growth, the movement of sugars in the plant. Iron couples with magnesium in the chlorophyll, and manganese is essential for the chlorophyll. Copper, reproduction of the plant and disease resistance. Zinc is a growth regulator in protein synthesis and helps in drought tolerance. I saw Neil in Louisville about a month ago or a month and a half ago at the Acres Conference, and he was talking specifically about the zinc levels. He said he had farmers that were growing corn and soybeans, and the ones that had adjusted their zinc on the field had a crop. It was only about a half a crop. But where they had not adjusted the zinc, they didn't get it. Yes.
Sorry, what was the potassium level, sir?
Pardon?
What was the potassium level? The potassium.
Potassium level.
The potassium levels, that was back when we talked about the calcium magnesium. It should be 2 to 5% of the cation exchange. Now the only time it's going to be outside of that, if you have a cation exchange that's really low, you cannot hold enough potassium to get through the season, so you have to spoon feed it. But we're not going to go there right now. That's advanced stuff. Here's a chart I found, I think, in North Carolina on the internet. Has each one of the trace elements, and then the vegetables that we grow are designated as high, medium, and low sensitivity to the deficiency of that nutrient. So my question is, if you're not paying attention to trace elements, why aren't you? This is on your little sheet. This is Neil Kinsey, that's his book. If you want to read about this system, that's the best book out there for it. If you would like to utilize this system, then that's also your contact. I work with a few people, but I don't have time to be a consultant for everybody in this room. Soil tillage. Don't work your soil wet. Everybody knows that. Do you know how to tell when your soil's too wet? Somebody can tell me.
Sticks to your shoes.
It sticks to your shoe, that's one way. You take it, if you can make a clump out of it that stays together, it's too wet. Another way is take a pinch of it and do this with it. And if it ribbons on you or if it sticks together, it's too wet. And probably everybody in this room, including me, works the soil too wet in the spring because we want to get out there and get something done. And every time I do, I kick myself because I end up with clods. Don't walk on your wet soil. Minimize your soil tillage and eliminate compaction. Now, equipment-wise, I have everything from a 13-horse PCS tractor to an 80-horse Maxi Ferguson. And I have equipment to match all those pieces. And they all fit into my operation somewhere. If you are doing a tenth of an acre, starting out as a market gardener and doing hand tools, then maybe you need to look at what hand tools you're using. But there are hand tools out there that will do some of this stuff. If you're bigger, we're going to talk about a couple of pieces. There's a standard rotary tiller. Ever since I was a little kid and found out they made rotary tillers, I wanted one. I thought it was the greatest idea out there. And I did buy one. When I was 10 years old, I bought the cheapest thing I could find. And that's what it was worth. But over the years, one of the things that I did a few years back, I decided that somebody needed to collect all these tillers. So I now have the largest collection of commercial antique rototillers in the country. Most of the tillers on the market, and I looked at all the major brands I could find on the internet, most of them have a rotor speed at your PTO, 540 PTO. The rotor speed is right at around 200 RPM. Some of them are 190, some of them are 210. If you run a tiller with two blades on each side of the flange at that speed, you're cutting very close together in each slice. And it takes a lot of horsepower. I have a 22-horse tractor, and I can run a 5-foot rototiller, 3-point, in bare, or not bare, but in hard-packed sod and skin that sod off of there at a depth of 4 inches. I'll show you how I do it. Now, there's a lot more flanges on this tiller than are normally. There are twice as many on here as you saw in the previous picture, because this tiller used to be what they call an earthquake rig. It was set up with straight knives to condition sod. Well, I took all those knives off, and I put one blade to the right and one blade to the left on each one of those flanges. Then, if you leave the cover board down on the tiller, you're recirculating the soil. And you literally beat that soil to death. So what I do is I lift that tailboard up. I run about 4 inches deep and go as fast as I can to get a nice big slice and still do the tilling. It almost works like it's not like a spader, but it's getting close to it. It's a whole lot cheaper. All right. The tiller is good to incorporate material, and it's good for seedbed preparation. But if I want to go deeper than 6 inches, I use something else. This is my little Ford tractor with that tiller on it, and with 2 blades on it, I'm going to get anywhere from about 2 inches to a little over 4 inches of cut per revolution, or per forward travel, is what I'm trying to say. When you put one blade on there, you take half the blades off, your cut now becomes 4 to 8. So what I'm doing is more like a hoe. I'm cutting a chunk like that and flipping it up. And when you're doing that to sod, you flip it up and you leave it laid. I have sod fields that I've taken, or pastures and whatnot, that I've converted into growing things. And going in and cutting the sod like that, and coming back a couple weeks later and tilling it one more time at a little more depth to mix that sod in with the soil and get it digesting. And ripping it to get air in there totally changes the structure of that soil. And I have not beat it to death. What I use, subsoiler. That's homemade. The tines aren't, but the frame is. And that's what it looks like when it's in the ground. It does not invert the soil, but it goes down. You can get down 16 inches with this one. All you have to do is go down deep enough to get under your hard pan. I made one for the small tractor. I have 3 shanks on it. Those are just simply the rippers off of a box blade. You can buy those at Tractor Supply. You can make 1, 2, or 3 on a frame. Power harrow. I mentioned a sterile seed bed. The power harrow is, in my opinion, the most valuable tool I have for what I'm doing. It has counter-rotating tines on a vertical axis, and you have precise control over the depth of the tillage. It firms and smooths your seed bed, and it aids in making a sterile seed bed. So what I do is I do my primary tillage for the rotary tiller. I let it sit for at least a week. And it's going to depend on what the weather is. You know, if it starts raining and it rains and it rains and it rains, you can't go back and till. But as soon as it dries out, as soon as I've got about 3 inches of dry soil where I can work it, I go back in with the power harrow. This is what it looks like from the rear. I run it with a PCS tractor. That crank controls the depth. And it's very precise. So I set that at about 1.5 inches, 2 inches at the most. And when you go over your bed after it's set for a week to 10 days, what you're doing is you're destroying 90% or so of the weed seeds that have germinated. And you're not doing this and bringing that more. So now I can go plant what I want to, and I have very few weed problems.
This is a power harrow for the BCS tractor. These tines rotate just like egg beaters. You get complete coverage. There's no middle left.
Bob, you got a question back here?
Yeah, go ahead.
Do you know anyone, or have you ever tried to plant sweet potatoes with a no-till?
I'm sorry?
Have you ever tried a no-till method for planting sweet potatoes, or do you know of any?
Well, I'm going to talk about that in a little bit. She wanted to know if I've ever tried no-till planting sweet potatoes, and there's a very good reason you need to consider that. We'll talk about it in just a minute. The Ford on the left I bought back in 1960 something, and I bought the best Ford I could buy at the time, and obviously it held up. It's still usable. A couple years ago I came across the stainless steel Ford, and I love that Ford. But there's a problem with all those fading forks. They don't have long enough tines. When you're growing sweet potatoes, you take one of those standard forks and dig your sweet potatoes. You're going to gouge sweet potatoes when you bend that back. Earth Tools had some of these great big forks, and I happened to be there when he had them, and I bought one. It's a 13-inch tine, and it gets under the sweet potatoes. I've talked to Joel about making a long tine fork. He has someone making broad forks for him. He's put in a request. He wants them to make a 3-tine broad fork that will do this kind of a job. So I hope that within the next 6 months he has that accomplished. And that's what I was just talking about. Yes, sir.
Hey, you're using the forks to dig your potatoes?
Yeah.
How come you don't use a potato digger? Where you go out?
Well, he wants to know why I don't use a potato digger to dig my sweet potatoes. Well, I have used a plow. What I end up doing when I'm harvesting my sweet potatoes is I basically will dig enough for the next couple weeks' market.
Okay.
I don't do the whole thing at one time. That's
Well, about 1,000 pounds of time.
yeah. So you're bigger than I am. Yeah. But if you want to see how they harvest sweet potatoes in sweet potato country where they're growing hundreds of acres, go to North Carolina's Sweet Potato Board. They have a video of them plowing sweet potatoes out. And it's amazing, but I'm not on that scale. I may make something that's similar to that and do one row at a time on my rows.
That's what I'm looking at, doing one row at a time.
Yeah.
Actually using one row of bigger potato.
Well,
Put it down under.
yeah, what they do is they use a big disc.
Right.
And I have some 16-inch disc holders or disc blades mounted on a shank. And I could very easily put that on a toolbar and go alongside of the bed or the sweet potatoes, just plow them over. And what that does is that cuts the vines so you don't have to worry about the vines.
Right.
The regular potato plows, you got to worry about the vines. You got to pull them off there. Yeah. So we're getting ahead of ourselves. Cover crops. Farming is a solar operation. Everybody wants to put solar cells up so they can get their electricity. Well, we've got to do something to get the soil or the solar energy into our soil. The little animals, all the stuff in the soil, I don't even know what all the stuff is, nobody does. It's all underneath the soil and it needs food. And there's two reasons for a cover crop. One is to harvest the sun's energy and get it into the soil for food for those organisms. And the other is to use the root system of the cover crop to condition your soil. What I like to do is harvest the green manure crop in a green stage. Doesn't always happen. It can be wet in the spring and you can't do anything with it, so you have to wait until it dries out. So you have to have options. There's a crop of rye a couple years ago. Usually my rye is above my head. Root mass of rye, someone did some research, and I don't know what they did to count these roots. 1937, they found 49 miles of roots on a rye plant. The surface area of the roots was 6,875 square feet. That was 130 times the surface area of the leaves. That's why I like rye for a cover crop. It does wonderful things for the soil. In the summertime, I like hybrid sorghum Sudan or Ssawg. You get fast growth. It loves hot weather. It does well in a drought. It won't grow when it gets as dry as it is this summer, but it'll grow. And what I would like to do, and I tried to do it this year, but it didn't get it managed, is I would like to plant a summer cover crop of Ssawg, and every 30 days go in with a sickle bar and mow it off. Let it lay. It grows right back through that. 30 days later, you've got 3 foot of mass again. You mow it again. Now, our part of the country, yes, sir.
I was wondering what the earliest is.
I usually don't get that planted until June. You have to wait till warm weather. In our area, you can plant as early as the early part of May, but I'm busy planting everything else, so that gets put aside. Accidentally, a few years ago, I had a bed of Ssawg, and I did that. I mowed it off. It was on one of my terraces, and every 30 days or so, I would mow it and leave it lay, and it would grow back up. In the fall, I had about 3 foot of growth when it frosted. The next spring, I had the most beautiful soil to plant in that I've ever had. And that's where I would like to take the Ssawg in the future, is to take a field and set it aside and get it in that kind of condition and plant things like cabbage and cauliflower and broccoli directly in that stubble no-till. That's the Ssawg field I had this year. The neighbors didn't know what it was. They thought they had sweet corn up there that was real tall. It's 10 feet tall. But I needed to just roll it down and plant my rye. Now this is not working again, but I used the tractor to flail more, and that's supposed to be swimming across the stream. I broadcast 2 bushel rye to the acre, and look what I've got. Look at all that residue laying there as mulch. Yes, sir.
Did you seed the rye, then roll the cover? Did you roll the cover and seed the rye on top of the residue?
Can you imagine me walking through 10 foot of Ssawg and seeding the rye?
No, but I asked another presentation what kind of high boys cover crop planters.
Yeah. No. The question was, I seeded the rye after I rolled it down.
And it still took.
It still took. We got some rain. Again, you have to have cooperation from the weather.
Yeah.
So we got some rain for the next couple of weeks, and I got really good germination. I got rye going like that. Now there's some indication that Ssawg can harbor your cutworms and grubs and stuff, and if you have grubs, they will nibble on your sweet potatoes and then you have a big hole. I haven't had that problem on any scale yet with rye cover crops. I'm going to have to move on because we're going to run out of time here. How I handle the cover crop, I like to flail mow it and rotary plow. I either rotary plow or rotary till it in. And we're going to talk about our sweet potatoes. One of the reasons I like sweet potatoes is they're easy to grow. They're not time sensitive. They're not like strawberries and raspberries. You got to get in the market right away. And it's a good return on investment. And there is a demand for high quality, good tasting sweet potatoes. Beauregard is my favorite. I've tried a bunch of others. I was talking to someone yesterday that said they had Georgia Jets and they liked them. I grew Georgia jets, and a few of the people down in my area grew some Georgia jets, and we wouldn't give you a dime for a semi-load of it.
Where's he from?
I really like the Beauregard.
That might be.
If you want to do some other varieties for, say, color safe, the old Henry's White Flash, some of these others I haven't drawn, but those are some of the top ones. You can look around and see the description on the internet. And there's a purple sweet potato. I accidentally got that in my slips. Yes, sir.
What color is Beauregard?
Beauregard is orange. Good color, good flavor, good texture. I planted Beauregards a couple years ago, and I'm digging my Beauregards, and all of a sudden I had a hill of potatoes that looked like that. And I didn't know if I had a sport or what I had. Well, what I found out is somebody ran across that sweet potato. They grew it for a couple years to make sure it stayed purple. Then they patented it. And it's only being grown under contract for some food company.
Sandy Hill Sweet Potato Farm has lots of varieties.
Who?
Oh, Sandy Hill.
Sandhill? Yeah. Sandhill Preservation? Well, I found out where to get this one. Cliff Slade, he was a speaker here yesterday on irrigation. He grows that one. And he says he has the paperwork that proves that he had it before they ever patented it, so he can legally sell it. And if you want to try some of those slips, I talked to him yesterday, he says he's got plenty of slips, and that's where I'm going to get my slips for the purple sweet potato. Yes? No. That's the Japanese. I have tried. Yeah. Now, when you pick your variety of sweet potato, you're going to have to decide, are you growing sweet potatoes? Well, what I'm doing is I want sweet potatoes for the general market, and I don't have time in my schedule to do all these little specific things, you know, little specialized. So I'm going to grow the purple one and the Beauregard, but I've tried some of the Japanese, and I don't really like the return I get on it. Yield-wise, some people don't, you know, they don't know what they are, but they are a good sweet potato. Yes?
Are there any varieties that produce more uniform tubers than other varieties? I get weird things built up.
Well, some of that weirdness comes from, you talked about, the question was, are there varieties that have more uniform sweet potatoes than others? Some of the research indicates that some of the varieties are better at giving good quality sweet potatoes. My experience is that the condition of the soil and the weather has more to do with that than the variety. And this last year is a good example. I planted my slips the first week in June, and I didn't get rain again until July. And it was 102 degrees. And I had the awfulest mess of crooked and skinny and lopsided sweet potatoes that I've ever seen. Normally, in good weather, I can harvest 100 sweet potatoes out of a row, and I can sell 95 pounds of those. This year, it was more like 40 pounds.
How long is your row?
100 foot. And a lot of them, 100 foot. But anyway, there's two ways the slips. The growers will either cut them or they will pull them. If they cut the slips, what you have done, the cut slips eliminate the transfer of any disease from the soil. And, pardon? Jim Jones, no, it's not certified organic. And I don't know where to tell you to go to get certified organic. I'm not sure, but I think, pardon? Kansas State sells the certified, and I think that Cliff Slade might have certified. I think he's an organic operation. But I buy my slips from Jim Jones. They are certified virus-free. I don't have scurf with them. That's another problem you get with sweet potato slips. My experience is scurf has a little bit to do with soil fertility, but it has a lot more to do with where you get your slips. Yes?
Well, if you have slips, say they're not cut, you usually cut them,
Right. Right. Cliff told me he pulls them. And I said, well, I prefer mine cut. He said, well, just let me know, we'll cut it for you. I'd rather pay him to cut them than have me do it.
On cut them, do they cut them right above the root system, or where do they cut them?
They cut them above the ground. What he does is he goes in and cuts slips when they get about this high. Oh, somebody turned the lights off. That's all right. But anyway, they go cut the slips off and then they show above the ground, put them in a box and ship them to you, and a couple weeks later they've got another growth of slips and they cut them off and ship them to somebody else. Yes?
But you have pretty extreme transplant shock or complete failure when you put a rootless slip in the ground. I like to see the slips with lots of roots on it. You don't have any roots.
You have to water them every day for the first week.
I never had a problem with that. He wants to know if you didn't have transplant shock. The sweet potato stem wants to grow roots. And you can lay that sweet potato on. Let me show you what I do with planting here. Except it's not going to work because the video is not working. If you have tight soil and a water problem, you should consider ridging, because the ridges get the sweet potato out of the water. I don't. My soil is fairly well drained. I just plant on the flat. And I make my beds with a rotary plow, or you can make them by hand, depending on your size. This is supposed to be running. You can see my barefoot. I'm not the Jeff is not the only barefoot farmer in Tennessee. Yes.
You're using sort of sterile seed bed. You're referring mainly to forward release seed beds, or are you also talking about keeping the life likely? You know,
I'm strictly looking. The sterile seed bed that I'm talking about is strictly seed, weed seed problems. I'm trying to get those weed seeds to germinate in the top couple inches and then destroy those and plant. And
you want to the microbiology, like bigger.
yeah, and if you do what I'm doing, the microbiology is not hindered at all. Yeah. Anyway, that's a darn shame this isn't working because that's a darn shame this isn't working because what I do is I make that row like that, and then I take the slips and I lay them in, and I cover everything but the top leaf. I lay the next slip right next to that and cover it and go right down the row, and I can plant 1,000 slips in an afternoon and not be worn out. I lay them horizontally. They just lay in there, one right after the other. And I lay them right next to each other. So what happens? Yeah. Go on. You had a question?
Yeah, so you're talking about putting 1,000 slips like you're saying, and 100 slips?
No. I can lay 1,000 slips in an afternoon, and 1,000 slips might go 500 feet.
Okay. So you're saying there's
End to end. One slip is laying here, the next one is laying right underneath it. And so what happens, now this is what my sweet potatoes look like. That's when they were transplanted, I hand watered those. June the 6th or June the 13th with a mulch on the side. The 27th of June, they were like that. 12th of July, there's August. full patch. This is on your little sheet. This research was done years and years ago. They went through all the vegetables that were growing and they mapped the roots. And this is the reason you need to pay attention to action. Look at the root on that 53-day-old sweet potato. It's 3 feet down and there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, almost 6 feet across. And they have those root systems for everything from lettuce to corn to beans, watermelon. Yes?
So if you've got a root system for a plant which is 3 to 5 feet wide, and you're planting systems apart, aren't you grabbing those roots quite a bit?
Well, I have a lot of roots there, yes. But this is what I get. If you plant them down like this, they're all trying to grow around that stem and they get crowded. When you lay them down, you get sweet potatoes. I call it the wall of sweet potatoes. Yes?
Okay, so the old time, that's the old thing, that oil machines in the ground.
Yeah.
Lay them like this, so you can go up there. And I can see that you get a better, I agree with you growing down.
Yeah. Yeah, I just, I kept growing sweet potatoes and I would look at them when I'd dig them and I'd see how, sometimes I'd have to pull them apart to get them apart. And I just kept thinking there's got to be a better way. There's got to be a better way. And the other problem was when I was doing this with a trowel, I might get 100 slips in the ground and my wrist was wore out.
Yes.
When I started doing this, I just get on my hands and knees and I stick them in there and do like this as I go. Yes. No more than, I'd make about 2 inches deep. Yeah.
And then you just cover it level?
I just pull dirt over. I don't even worry about leveling it. And then what I'm doing now is I lay drip tape alongside that and I get that drip so they take root. And I don't have any problem with any of those rootless stems, if you want to call them that. They go in root. Yes.
If you plant it vertically, presumably you have one root set. If you plant it horizontally, and you get 3 or 4 root sets from each slip.
Yeah, well actually what happens if you plant it vertically, the question is, if you lay it down, are you getting, how many root slips are you getting, or how many roots off the slip? Each node is going to have roots coming off of it. And if you plant it vertically, then each node is going down like this, like a Christmas tree. And each one of those nodes is trying to put sweet potatoes on. When you lay it down, then each node is going like this from the sweet potato vine, and now you have a few sweet potatoes here, and a few here, and a few here, just like you do over here. Yes?
And you reckon you're averaging about 100 pounds for a 100-foot bed?
Good question. Am I averaging 100 pounds for a 100-foot bed? No. Let's see if I get those figures here. I'm going to cover that in a second. Let me get through this because we're just about done. This is the history behind this. People talk about what kind of soil you need for sweet potatoes. They say you need a sandy soil. These sweet potatoes came out of that garden. Those are friends of mine. They had me do the soil fertility for them a couple years ago. That's been balanced according to Albright's system. One sweet potato vine had that pile of sweet potatoes on it, and that is 100% red Tennessee clay. So tell me you don't have to have.
How many were there?
I didn't measure them, but it was a lot.
I had 27 off my red
Yeah.
wine velvet, one plant this year.
Pardon?
I produced 27 sweet potatoes off of one red wine velvet plant this year. So don't just grow the sweet potato varieties. If you list on there, you want to try other varieties too. Sand Hill's got hundreds and hundreds of varieties. You should try them all. See what works for you at your climate, your soil.
Yes. I don't worry about that. What I do, you saw in one picture, you saw the hay mulch down either side. I plant the sweet potatoes, I get the drip on them, and then I lay the mulch down on the outside of that. Well, they will root down sometimes, but not much. But I don't worry about it. Once in a while, I have a sweet potato that sets out somewhere. Now, this isn't going to work, but what I did,
just for an illustration, this is my roll of mulch, this is my drip tape, and the pencils are my sweet potato slips. If we lay them down on top of the ground, we can either lay them in one row like this, or we can put 2 rows down. You lay the slips on the ground, you roll the mulch out on top of them, put the drip tape on them, and turn the water on.
going to work, but what I did, I took some pencils to show you how this works. If you get your slips and you've all of a sudden got a rainy season, you can't get in there and work the ground, can you do no-till? Which is the question was asked back a while ago. What I'm going to do, I'm going to do it whether it's wet or not, because I want to find out how well it works. I think it might be really, really interesting. But I'm going to take the slips and lay them down like this. And I'm going to put the mulch across them like this. And I'm going to put the drip tape on top. So the slips are going to lay there on top of the ground, with the mulch on top, and irrigate. Yeah, something similar to that. Now, my mulch is about 22 inches wide, so I can lay slips on one side and lay slips on the other, and I've got a double row of sweet potato. And
Oh, so he does it down the middle.
those 2 rows would be maybe 10, 12 inches. And so that, to show you that this will work, this is something I tried a couple years ago. I had some broccoli and cabbage that I wanted to plant, and it was muddy. I laid the plants down, put a handful of compost over, put the mulch down. That's September the 9th. There's the 14th, 21st, 19th of October. I get beautiful cabbage and beautiful broccoli out of that. Yes?
What are you using as mulch?
Hay. And there's the answer. And again, this is supposed to be a video, and it's not working. We need to make sure they update their software on these things. Again, this is supposed to be a video, and it's not working. We need to make sure they update their software on these things. But I have one little baler that goes to the DCS tractor, and I bale my own mulch. That's simply fescue, clover, ragweeds, whatever's out there, I roll it up and bale it. I try to do it before it sets seed, but I don't get that done all the time. I use the seeds and everything. They're small round bales. They're about 22 inches wide, and they make, they're about this big around. Now, that is an expensive baler, and if you don't have the DCS tractor and don't have the money to invest in that and get that baler, I grew up on a farm that we had dairy, and we had all kinds of bales of straw. My mom had read the book on no-till gardening by Bruce Stapp, and we took straw bales and went out and mulched the garden. You just take the strings and cut it, and you take the slabs and lay it down. And you can do that with this. If you don't have a baler again, there's always somebody in the neighborhood that's got a square baler. And if you've got stuff to bale, have a baler for you.
Did you answer his question about how I thought you had said earlier you got 100 pounds off of a 100-foot row, and you said that you wanted to say a little more about that?
Hang on. There's one of the bales.
Oh, he's using ACS right.
They're not very big. And each bale will roll out to 25 to 30 feet of mulch.
I know. But you got
These little balers are specifically for doing that.
They're made to bale hay. I happen to bale mulch. Okay? And all the years I've been selling bales at the market for mulch, I've never had anybody buying for their goats until this year. I've got a guy buying it for his goats now. The hay mulch helps keep the crop clean, controls the weeds, keeps the soil cool, conserves soil moisture, stops erosion, decomposes, and it's good food for the life in the soil. Sure beats flaxseed. But there are some places where you might want to use flaxseed. Pests and problems. There's the dry weather. You get rat tails, you get all kinds of new shapes.
now I know why.
Rats. If you're growing sweet potatoes and they're sweet like they should be, you're going to have rats in the sweet potato bag. Pardon? Well, they'll love them too. And I don't know what the answer is to moles. Yes?
Half my crop cracked this year. I didn't have any way to water them, and then it rained in the fall. Is that what caused it? I've never had so many cracks in my life.
That could very well be. You want to know what causes it to crack. If you have dry weather and you get rain, you get a spurt of growth. And going back to the soil nutrients, if all the nutrients aren't there and you don't have the nutrients needed to control the growth, you're going to get cracking. I had some cracking this year, but I didn't have that much.
It was new ground. I haven't had a chance to get it up to par yet.
Pardon?
It was a new garden site. First year I was growing there, and the soil hadn't had a chance to get up.
Sure. Okay. Now, I've been using rat bait, and I know you can't do that if you're certified or if you want to be certified. Rat bait has some downsides to it. I lost one of my best dogs because the rats drug the bait out of the trap or out of the box, and she got a hold of a chunk of it.
The chunk of the face.
So I want to get away from the rat bait.
Would it poison your dog?
I just found this. A local hardware store had one of these, and I bought one and brought it home and tried it. It's a beautiful rat trap. And that is on your little sheet. That's where I bought a dozen of them. They're less than $3 a trap. And they're beautiful.
You talking rats? You talking gophers?
I'm talking rats. We don't have gophers in Tennessee. Yes. Now, yeah, if you have rabbits, don't seem to do much damage from the sweet potatoes. They'll come and nibble on them a little bit, but the sweet potatoes outgrow the rabbits. Groundhogs, I got a rifle for that. Deer, I had sweet potatoes in a place just a couple years ago that had a lot of deer pressure. And I put up a single strand of that real skinny, light electric fence with a hot charger on it. And I put a strand along the woods. I put another strand over next to the sweet potatoes. And then a little later, I put some strands down along the sweet potato rows. The deer were so darn confused because they couldn't see the wire, and every time they turned around, they were running into electricity. They stayed out of it. Harvesting. I usually try to start harvesting in my area. I can usually start harvesting in mid to early August. And I start digging enough for the next market. Curing the sweet potatoes, 7 to 10 days, temperature 80 to 85, relative humidity of 90%. I don't pay attention to humidity because we don't have a problem in our area. It's usually too humid. and store at 50 to 60 degrees. If you cure them and store them, if they're growing properly, they'll keep all winter long. And what I'd like to do is have enough this next year that I can store them all winter long and sell them from the first market in April to the time when I have fresh ones in August.
I've
Yes.
got an after publication about organic sweet. I've got an after publication about organic sweet potato production, and it states that in our area, northwest Arkansas, a lot of the growers do like you. They just dig enough to sell at the farmers market weekly because there's some kind of bacteria or something that causes them to rot in storage. And I've had that problem. I harvest 1,000 pounds more sweet potatoes every year, and even if they look great and I store them right, they rot within a couple weeks or a month or two. A lot of times. And some varieties are less acceptable than others to it, but
Yeah.
can you say anything about that?
Well, I don't pay a lot of attention to diseases because I approach it from the other end. I try to do the fertility up front and the cultural practices, and I have a very few that will rot on me, but it's usually they've been damaged in harvesting or whatever. I know what you're talking about, and I have seen that at times. I don't really know what the answer is, but I would say take a real good look at your fertility and see if there's something out of whack.
How do you cure yours? How do you dry them?
I just stick them in a room and turn the temperature up. Put them in bushel baskets.
Just put them in the basket and
I just put them in bushel baskets and set them in a room and crank the heat up. Yes?
What's the purpose of curing?
What's the purpose of curing? It lowers the moisture content of the sweet potato and kind of, I guess, terminates the transpiration of it so that it goes ahead and keeps. It also makes it sweeter.
What do you store them in or on, or do you leave them in groups, in baskets?
What I store mine in, bushel baskets are good. Anything but plastic. You want something to breathe.
But if you said you put them in a room and turn the heat up, why can't you leave them outside where it's 100 degrees or 90 degrees?
Well, you can if it's like that, but you need them out of the sun. You can't have them in the sun.
Put them in the shade.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
That'll work. This is kind of the guideline I use for all the stuff I sell. If I can't punch it or box it, then I have to put it out for people to pick through it. And your market is going to go much better if everything can be pre-bunched or pre-boxed. Then it's how many boxes and what kind do you want. And I price them even amount. And with sweet potatoes, what I used to do is I set out multiple boxes or trays with a whole lot of sweet potatoes in it, and the people would come by and they're picking through this box and that box trying to find their ideal sweet potato. This fall I discovered if I put 2 half-bushel baskets out there and put about half of them, each one of them has about a half basket in it. I put small ones in one, the large ones in the other, and I'll leave the rest of them on the truck. As they buy out of that, then I replenish it. But they quit sorting through it. Holiday, stores like to take sweet potatoes and price leader, 60 cents a pound or whatever. I sell full seasons generally around $2.50 a pound. The customers are willing to pay for good price and good quality. My market records, I kind of do a weight loss or a count loss system. I know how much I took to the market. I have a spreadsheet on each market. I totaled each market, so I know what happened at each day at each market. And there's an example. There's mulch bales up there, navy cabbage, onions down to the sweet potatoes at the bottom. That's one market part of the year. We already talked about wasted motion. Profitability. I don't have the pounds down here, but at $2.50 a pound, I'll run anywhere from $5 to $10 a row foot. You can do the math on that. And I think that the direction I'm going with this that I can do much better than that. Because instead of doing a single row, and this was used by another grower in our area, he had a bed and he put 3 rows in the bed. And between each of the two, between the 3 rows, he put a row of drip tape here and a row of drip tape there. And he kept it drip. And he had beautiful potatoes and a good yield. Because of my terraces and how wide they are, I'm going to a double row. I've done some of this already, about 10 to 12 inches apart, laid in each row, mulch on either side, drip tape down the middle. I think I can probably double this.
I'm just curious if you have any recommendations about, I know that
that seems to be okay right now. The question was adequate nitrogen for the sweet potatoes. They're not a real heavy feeder on nitrogen. I use my cover crop as a mulch. Makes a big difference. Yes. What kind of water? I collect rainwater. That's my primary source of irrigation. If I don't have enough rainwater, I go down 7 miles down the road and get 1,000 gallons out of the spring.
So how do you have your rainwater?
The big tanks that I showed at the beginning, those are what I store it in. I collect it off of the roof. Yes. Yeah. Question is wireworm damage. The 2 insects that probably do more damage to sweet potatoes would be the wireworms and the grubs. And with the wireworms, you need to look at what you're doing soil-wise. When you get the soil straightened out, you don't have a problem with wireworms. Yes?
You stagger your plants?
No, well, when I get my slips in, I plant everything I get in. And sometimes I will get slips one week and then another batch the next week. But that's the only reason I stagger them.
Did you say you covered your rows with the tool also, with the tractor? Or you say you dig it with the tractor, but do you also cover it with the tractor? Or do you use a hoe?
No, I cover the slips. I cover those. Is that what you're talking about?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You cover the slips with a hoe by hand, correct?
I'm on my hands and knees and I cover it with my hand. I put a slip down and I take this other hand to do that and I put another slip down and just go down like this.
That's great. The hard part is digging with the trowel. We plant thousands of slips with a little hand trowel and it kills us.
That's what I used to do and it wore me out. Any other questions?
Yeah, Bob, when I use hay mulch, it seems like I'm just planting annual and perennial weeds in my rows. How do you handle that?
You harvest the hay before it goes to seed.
Well, that's all fine and good if I'm harvesting it, but when somebody else is harvesting it,